Tantrums are a common occurrence during toddlerhood, and they can start as early as 9 months of age and continue for a few years to come. But what no one tells you is you actually have the power to reduce the number of tantrums your little one is having by simply removing some known triggers that cause tantrums. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 tips on how to reduce the number of tantrums your little one is having, which will make your life with your little one a whole lot more enjoyable. But before we do, if your little one is under 1 year of age, make sure you click on that free PDF document in the description box below to get that free developmental checklist for your baby's first year of life. So how can you reduce the number of tantrums your little one is throwing throughout the day? So the very first thing you want to do is give your toddler the opportunity to make some minor choices in their day. Toddlers want to be independent. They don't always have the skill to be independent, but they still want that independence. And they also understand a lot more than they can say, and this can result in some frustration because they don't have the words to tell you what their wants are, their needs, or their feelings. So to compensate for their developing language skills, as well as a need for independence, it's important to give them some minor choices in their day. So that might mean that you let them choose what piece of fruit they have or what they have on their sandwich. And I would do that by giving your toddler 2 choices. And if you have it available, I would hold those choices in your hands because that will help to increase their understanding. So if you are going to let them choose the piece of fruit, I would say, do you want an apple, holding it in one hand, or do you want an orange? And once your toddler indicates what they want, you would then give it to them. What you will notice is as your little one's language skills starts to improve, the number of tantrums should reduce. The second thing you want to do is always prepare your little one for when an activity is coming to an end. So transitions, so moving from one activity to another, is extremely difficult for toddlers, and you always need to verbally warn them as well as try and use natural endings to activities. So for example, if your little one is watching TV and they're watching a nursery rhyme, what you would do is you would tell them one more song or one more nursery rhyme, and when that nursery rhyme finishes, that is when you turn the TV off and move on to the next activity. You don't turn it off mid-song or mid-nursery rhyme because that is going to result in a tantrum. Now, if you are out at the park, the way you would do that is you would say, okay, 5 more pushes on the swing, and then we are going home. And you would count that out. You would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, finished, and then hop off. And that will help them with that transition and reduce the likelihood of a tantrum occurring. The third tip is routine, routine, routine. Toddlers love and thrive on routines, and that is because routines provide a sense of security, and it also teaches them what are the expected behaviors that should happen during that set event. So a routine might be as simple as having the same sequence of activities that happen before bedtime. So they might have a bath, then they might get into their pajamas, brush their teeth, you might read them a book in bed, sing them a song, and then they go to sleep. But having this routine makes it really quite simple for their little one because they know exactly what's going to happen, and they also know what is expected of them. The fourth tip is to make sure that you keep your toddler well rested. So you want to avoid an overtired toddler. We know ourselves that when we are tired, our tolerance is a lot less and we are more likely to become upset and a bit irrational. And that is the same with toddlers. So what you want to do is set and keep age-appropriate bedtimes and nap times. Now, what you do need to be aware of is between 12 to 15 months of age, your toddler is going to drop their nap. So they'll go from 2 naps to 1 nap. And this might mean that you need to bring that bedtime slightly forward just to compensate. And as they get more comfortable staying awake for longer without that second nap, then you can gradually bring that bedtime back out. Tip number 5 is to place any item that your little one is not allowed to play with definitely out of reach, but more importantly, out of sight. And this is because toddlers are extremely impulsive. They don't yet understand social norms. And when they want something, they want it then and there. So if they can see the item, then of course they are going to want to play with it. And if they aren't allowed to, then this will result in a tantrum. So if you can place it out of sight, you will avoid that whole interaction. But if this is not possible, then that is completely fine. What you want to do is give them an alternative. So for example, when I'm often in the kitchen, my toddlers would often want to be right there beside me, and it isn't safe for them to open the drawers. But I knew that they were going to want to do that. So I gave them a drawer which was okay to open. So I placed all my Tupperware containers in a lower drawer that they could open, and then they would spend all their time pulling those Tupperware containers out, and I knew that they were safe and happy while I was in the kitchen. The sixth tip is to make sure you keep your toddler well fed. Even us as adults get hangry, and toddlers definitely get hangry, and they show that by generally throwing a tantrum. Now, toddlers don't yet understand what those body sensations mean, and they don't know when they are hungry until you pretty much put the food in front of them and they start to eat. So just try and keep on top of it, and you do that by knowing that toddlers generally eat every 2.5 hours. They generally have 5 meals a day, and it's your role to provide food which is safe for them to eat, but it's their role to choose how much of that food they want to eat. So make sure when you are going out, just be aware that if it's coming up to that 2.5 hour mark, or you know your toddler's going to be hungry when you're out, have some food which is easily accessible for you to give them while you're out, and avoid that tantrum which is caused by hunger. The seventh tip is to make sure you give your toddler toys which are age appropriate, and make sure you rotate the toys. Now, we want to give them toys which are age appropriate because toddlers are extremely independent, and if you are giving them toys which are simply too hard for them to play with or manipulate, then it is going to result in a lot of frustration because they don't want your help. They want to do it themselves, but they simply do not have the skill. The other reason you want to rotate their toys is to avoid boredom. If you keep presenting them with the same toys, they are going to get bored of those toys, and that will result in some tantrums as well. But if you rotate the toys, so you might put a box of toys away and then bring it out a week or two later, then it's like it's a new toy for your little one, and it provides a lot more entertainment and engagement. Tip number 8 is be aware of your toddler's cues that they're getting a little frustrated or they're likely to tantrum soon. If you can notice that your little one is becoming frustrated or they're getting upset, what you can do is intervene before that tantrum occurs, and you can help them through that process. So you might be able to say, I can see you getting frustrated with that toy. Can I help you? And then you can help them build it up, and that will avoid a tantrum. But if you are not picking up on those cues early enough, then it will definitely result in a tantrum, which is going to be a whole lot harder to manage. The 9th tip is to be consistent. Now, it is really important to show empathy to your child and label their emotions when they do become upset, but it's also important to keep with what you said. So if your little one starts to cry when you say it's time to leave the park, and you've given them that verbal warning, and then it's time to go and they start crying, you should say, I can see you're upset, but we still need to leave the park. It isn't going to help if you backflip and you say, okay, we can go and play on another play equipment, because what that teaches your little one is that if I cry or fuss long enough, then mum will change her mind or dad will change their mind, and I'll be able to get what I want. And lastly, you want to avoid saying no, don't, or stop doing something. It is really frustrating for toddlers to hear all the time, stop touching your toys, stop doing this, stop doing that. And it will result in lots of tantrums because they just feel like they can't do anything. What you need to do instead is use positive language and tell them what to do. And if you want more advice on that, then make sure you click on this video here where I go through why this phrase doesn't work and what you can do instead. Make sure you click on that free PDF document in the description box below, and I will see you next week where I'll share more parenting tips and tricks.